What if I told you there was a manga magazine where the hits keep coming, and in the words of Smash Mouth, they don't stop coming? One that has a storied past and bright future of producing the cream of the crop in concept and art. What if I also told you this same magazine has been flying under the radar in recent years, becoming much less loved in comparison to other magazines like it, and dare I say, even becoming underrated? The name of that magazine is Margaret. That was a little anticlimactic. Editor Colleen, can you make that pop a little bit more in post? Ooh, and add some like really cool sound effects on that part as well. And hear me out. You should green screen some fireworks behind me and like flashing text that says Margaret. You are me. You know that we don't know how to do that, so you'll get what you get. The name of that magazine is Margaret. Now, for anyone unfamiliar with shoujo manga, which is probably still a lot of you, most likely the magazine doesn't ring a bell. Hell, you may not have even heard of its name before just now. What I can almost guarantee though is that most manga fans know of at least one Margaret series. The magazine has been around since the dawn of manga time and has permeated throughout the culture of this media. Maybe you know the best-selling shoujo manga of all time, Boys Over Flowers, or perhaps you know the French Revolution themed series that pushed the boundaries of manga, Rose of Versailles. Both extremely famous titles were published in this legendary magazine, just not at the same time. When I made a video about the diversity of shoujo manga magazines, I actually ended up leaving Margaret out. At the time, I just didn't have my eyes on any of the currently or formerly published series. But in the last few months, I have completely turned into a Margaret stan after looking into what they've had to offer in the last couple of years. With each new series I find from the magazine, I fall deeper into the rabbit hole due to their engaging concepts, their fun storytelling, and beautiful artwork. Their comedy series never fail to have me in stitches in every chapter, or their dramas just always make me look forward to what's coming next. There's something about Margaret, a kind of magic that makes me love every manga inside more than I would have expected. Like I said at the top though, the magazine has become much more underrated within the last decade. Not just in America, where we rarely get series from the magazine to begin with, but also in Japan too. While Margaret used to be the shoujo manga anthology with over 100,000 copies in circulation in 2009, these days, the magazine can barely even crack 15,000. So in this video, I want to take a look at three things in particular: the importance of the magazine, what we've gotten from it, and the current state of Margaret. With historical context, we'll be able to properly see where the shoujo anthology got its roots and how it developed from there, getting a better picture of where Margaret presently lies in the shoujo landscape. Margaret is a bi-monthly shoujo manga anthology under the Shueisha Publishing Company that started back in 1963. Although when the magazine first began publishing, it was in a weekly format, like most shonen magazines are now. Due to this, it was one of the first shoujo manga anthologies of its kind, and one of the most successful publications of any manga magazine for years in a row. It wasn't until the late 80s that the magazine ended up moving from weekly to bi-monthly, when the editors realized that a weekly format just didn't work for the style of shoujo writing. As of right now, the magazine is published on the 5th and 20th of every month. Margaret's meteoric rise is obviously thanks in large part to the women mangaka that made series in the magazine. One of the biggest names, even still to this day, is Ryoko Ikeda, who has made beloved titles like Rose of Versailles, Dear Brother, and Claudine. She was essential in making human drama and literary stories a staple in the magazine as well as shoujo. Her work and legacy has inspired many mangaka and series since, such as Berserk and Revolutionary Girl Utena. However, Ikeda wasn't the only one responsible for defying the shoujo laws of those decades. There's also Nishitani Yoshiko, who is credited for popularizing the high school romance series that we all know and love of today. Prior to the 60s, most shoujo series were not focused on romance, as the main characters were very young. It was actually unusual to find romance as a main theme in shoujo at all, unless it was relegated to an older side character. With a manga audience that grew along with the medium though, teenagers were becoming the primary consumers. To follow suit, the setting of shoujo manga needed to age the characters up, and Nishitani Yoshiko's popular work, Mary Lou, followed by Lemon and Cherry, did just that. Lemon and Cherry specifically brought the Japanese high school settings into the shoujo repertoire, which is Margaret's bread and butter today. Along with the high school romance, sports manga started gaining popularity because of Margaret titles as well. The Tokyo Olympics were held in 1964, and with the Japanese women's volleyball team getting gold, the interest in sports series were heightened. Subsequently, the volleyball manga, Attack No. 1 by Chikako Urano, became a smash hit. Or I guess, a cross-court kill. Volleyball humor. The manga made waves with its unique genre storytelling, as sports series just weren't the norm yet. It inspired many sports series going forward, like Aim for the Ace by Sumika Yamamoto, which is about tennis players. Attack No. 1 also gave way for non-traditional sports titles like Legend of Light by Izumi Aso, which is about a rhythmic gymnast. Unfortunately, out of all the titles that I've mentioned so far, English speakers really only have Ryoko Ikeda to look at for more classic Margaret titles. Through its 60 years of history, there are less than 15 titles available from this magazine, and only 3 of them predate the 80s. Those titles would be Rosa Versailles and Claudine, like I mentioned before, in addition to the ballet manga Swan. Swan was a manga that never finished publishing in America, as the CMX imprint it was under ended up shutting down in 2010. Only 15 volumes of the 21 in total are available, and as you can imagine, they are very out of print and very hard to find. One of the few 90s titles from the magazine that English speakers have been exposed to is Boys Over Flowers by Yoko Kamio. This manga is still, to this day, the best-selling shoujo manga ever. It has sold over 60 million copies, spawning several live-action drama adaptations across Asia, as well as an anime produced by Toei in 1996. Boys Over Flowers is held in high regard around the world for its Cinderella-esque plot and its themes centering bullying, which unfortunately will never be irrelevant for high school kids. With the intense popularity of this manga, it definitely changed Margaret to a more drama romance focus from the 90s onwards. Many of their titles since have stayed within the realm of the Japanese high school setting, with an everyday normal girl protagonist. Not to say these are the only genres that we get in the magazine though. Margaret has had a decent amount of variety, with some fantastical scenarios thrown into the mix. Series like Tale of the Moon, which is a historical ninja rom-com, or Demon Love Spell, which is a supernatural romance, have shaken up the formula within the 2000s to 2010s. More recent titles like It Is Because of You That Love Will Die or God Is Telling Me to Fall in Love have added a dash of sci-fi in as well. These genres aren't the main focus of the magazine, but their addition has definitely helped keep it feeling fresh and switches things up for the readership every now and then. Ultimately, Margaret does largely stick to what it knows best, which is a good old-fashioned rom-drom-com. Com-drom-rom. Drom-rom-com. Editor Colleen, pick which one of those you think works better. However, their drama titles have definitely become much softer in tone in comparison to the absolute insanity of Boys Over Flowers or A Devil in Her Love Song over the years. This is most likely due to the popularity of Mika Yamamori and Sue Morishita titles in the magazine. Both of these mangaka have become widely famous in the last year because of the popularity of their 2 series, In the Clear Moonlit Dusk and A Sign of Affection. But before this popularity, they got their start in Margaret in the early 2010s. Yamamori and the Morishita duo have basically become synonymous in my mind due to their back-to-back simultaneous manga releases. This began with Daytime Shooting Star and Hibi Choo Choo, which even had special collaboration chapters together. These 2 series were pivotal in getting me back into manga during college, Daytime Shooting Star specifically because I was a huge Mazume shipper, and spoilers, gave me my first taste of love triangle shipping victory. After Daytime Shooting Star and Hibi Choo Choo, they had one more double release with Tsubaki Cho Lonely Planet and Short Cake Cake. These were their last appearances in Margaret before parting ways with Shueisha and moving to Kodansha in 2019. These two aren't the only legacy Margaret mangaka that ended up leaving the magazine that year either. There was a mass exodus of authors at the time. Okay, that's overdramatic, but a lot of authors did leave, so I'm going to call it an exodus. Big names like Miyoshi Tomori, who has been creating for the magazine since 2002, ended up moving over to Cookie with her recent work. While Tomori's series are hit or miss, they are usually very hard to put down with how good the drama is. You also had Ayumi Komura, who got her start in Margaret in 2004, moving on to other ventures like Teens Love and more recently a shonen rom-com series. Komura has had many well-received works inside the magazine, such as Usotsuki Lily and Mixed Vegetables, which we have in English. Lastly, Nagamu Nanaji, who debuted in the magazine back in 2000, hasn't created a new work since their last series, Futsu no Koiko-chan, ended. She's been an integral mangaka in Margaret ever since her breakout hit, Parfait Tick, and then again with Aruito. The departure of all of these mangaka have definitely left a noticeable hole in the Margaret lineup. Many of them were their star players over the last 20 years, and filling those spaces has proved to be difficult. In the meantime, the sales of the magazine has continued to decrease about 10,000 every year, landing it at 16,000 copies in circulation in 2022. Compare that to its sister magazine Betsuma's 60,000 copies in circulation, and you can see why there's cause for concern. The two have a very similar magazine genre focus, and it's clear that Betsuma is pulling ahead in popularity. Margaret has just been in a very dire state, and it needs something, anything, to fill in those gaps. Luckily, I do think that at the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, things may be looking up for Margaret. Maybe just not to the extent of other magazines, and I doubt it would ever entirely return to its former glory, since magazine sales are on the decline anyway. However, there are several now seasoned mangaka, increasingly popular titles, and new series to expect great things from in this magazine. These past 3 years may have been a transient state for Margaret, but it's given a chance for newcomers to showcase their talents in a spotlight that was otherwise unoccupied. There are 3 mangaka in particular that have been shining in the magazine as of late. Starting with the most recent of them, Aki Kusaka. They got their start in Margaret with a short 2-volume series titled Hajimete no Samejimakun. It was in 2020 though when Kusaka hit gold, at least for me, with their series Hayaku Shitai Futari, a slapstick rom-com about a gyaru and an uptight boy who have just recently started dating, but she comes to find out that the boy has a strict no-touching rule. It was hilarious in all the right ways while still being able to keep that heart-thumping romance as well. While this series didn't have outstanding sales by any means, it definitely helped build up Kusaka's fan base going forward, establishing them as someone with amazing comedic timing and stunning artwork in Margaret to look out for. Another standout during this time has been Mizuki Hoshino, who is just about to wrap up her 3rd series with the magazine. She debuted in 2017, but quickly had a hit on her hands in 2018 with her series Miniamaru Kareshi. It followed a high school girl who believed that she wasn't able to fall in love, and a boy in her grade who had cynical ideas on matters of the heart. Excelling in both adorable, bubbly artwork in contrast with its darker writing tone, the series gained fast fans, selling around 2 million copies for its 13-volume run and solidifying Hoshino as their next big mangaka. Her recent work, Tiger and Dragon, is going to be on the shorter end, but it was at least popular enough to have gotten 6 magazine covers during its 1 year of publishing. The last mangaka that I want to highlight is Chihiro Hiro, who has been my personal favorite across the board with their series. They've been around in Margaret the longest, with their first series coming out in 2015. It wasn't until 2018, when Futari Dekoi wo Suuriu began publishing, that Hiro started gaining the popularity that was much deserved. The story follows a high school girl who has her first crush and focuses on the more realistic sides of love in your teens. This manga was just a perfect storm of drama and angst and truly amazing artwork that was able to hook an audience every other week, garnering it a 12-volume run, which is pretty long for a Margaret series these days, with over 1.5 million copies sold. While the absence of many favorites will be missed, these three have shown that they can take up the mantle for the next generation of artists, each bringing unique art styles and charming characters to the table, while crafting engaging and entertaining stories. They've all played a large part in my extreme investment in Margaret as of late, and I can guarantee that I am not the only one who's gotten interest in this magazine because of them. One major issue with these mangaka though is that many of the series that I mentioned have already ended or are about to end. Futari de Koi wo Suiryu wrapped up a month ago, and Tiger and Dragon is basically wrapping up while I release this video. Add to that a few other series that have announced that their endings are imminent, like Black Marriage by Saki Aikawa, and a long-running spin-off manga to a long-running original manga, Mei-chan's Butler DX. Once again, putting the magazine back in that liminal space for the start of 2023. While this does put Margaret in a bad place at the beginning of the year, I don't think that means that Margaret has no promise on the horizon. I do want to make it clear for the rest of this video that I'm not really going off of like hard data or anything. It's mostly just the positive reception and feedback that I've been seeing for these series. We don't really have access to numbers and sales like shonen magazines do, since shoujo magazines are more community-based than competition-based. So don't come into the last section of this video expecting me to pull up some graphs. The most hard data or sales I will have for this section will just be the circulation of the collected volumes. With that, let's start off with the consistent seller that's been in the magazine since 2020, Sentimental Kiss. This manga comes from Miko Komori, who has been a Margaret feature since 2012. Her big hit that grabbed her attention prior to Sentimental Kiss was definitely Boku ni Hana no Melancholy, which ran for 13 volumes. Komori has a very recognizable art style with wide-eyed and at times chibi-looking features paired with thin, wispy line art. Her art lends heavily to her masterful expressions in her stories, as you can always feel how the character feels through just their eyes. Sentimental Kiss, like Komori's other work, has been a decently fun read, with some really good angst to go with it. It centers on a second-year college girl named Yuna who is always having to be the responsible older sister. One day, her middle school sister steals her uniform so she can attend a high schooler-only party, and Yuna has to go and save her. However, circumstances end up leading her to drinking alcohol, and before the cops can show up to break up the party, she gets saved by a mysterious boy. This boy is named Hiyori, who is a high school student at her former high school, and he quickly becomes enamored with Yuna. I've been enjoying this one for the most part, but mostly just because I really like Komori's style of writing. She has this great way of capturing longing in her series, and Sentimental Kiss doesn't skimp on that. There's a quiet air around the characters whenever they're interacting, and it gives you that heart clench where you just feel for them. Both Yuna and Hiyori have equal time as narrators, so they're very fleshed out right from the beginning as well. There is the matter of like a 3-year age difference between them, I think, but for the most part, I can just largely ignore that, pretend it's not there. This series has been doing very well for itself, with over 900,000 copies in circulation for the 7 volumes that are currently out. Anytime a new volume releases, it ends up in the top 50-ish on the Oricon sales charts. I can't see this manga slowing down in sales anytime soon, so I definitely feel like it will become an anchor for the magazine during this in-between phase. Along with Sentimental Kiss is the rising star of Margaret in the last year, Pink to Habanero. This comes from another mangaka that has been around in the magazine since 2012, Mika Satonaka. But this is Satonaka's first title to grab a wider audience like Pink to Habanero has been. By the end of 2022, the manga was selected as a recommended title for booksellers nationwide, as well as all of the volumes that were currently out getting reprinted. This series has just been steadily gaining popularity in the last couple of months, and with the 4 volumes currently out, it has 400,000 copies sold. I actually spoke about Pink to Habanero in another video of mine recently because it is just a title that I desperately want in English ever since I came across it. It is just a perfect mix of great characters, fun scenarios, and cringe comedy that makes it a standout. The story follows a new high school student named Mugi who is ready to find herself a boyfriend after having been in her gorgeous friend's shadow all throughout middle school. Mugi has a hard time even making friends though, and goes to cafes to cheer herself up. She ends up visiting a night cafe that's a little out of the way for her, and when she goes there, she ends up seeing the rude and aloof boy in her class, Kurose, working. While at first Kurose is reluctant to interact with Mugi, she begins to see through this cold attitude and starts to fall in love. There's a reason the series is doing well, and it makes sense. Not only is the art very pretty, but the characters are funny and relatable. Mugi is just such a cringe fail female lead and can never seem to be the cutesy protagonist that she wants to be. She's always flailing around desperately, hoping to make things work out the way that she wants, and while it is a bit embarrassing at times, it's still very endearing as well. Contrasting her intensity is Kurose, who is relaxed but insanely blunt with his words. They're never meant to be mean though, just honest, so his interactions with Mugi are very fun. The pair play off of each other well thanks to the breezy, natural dialogue between them, as well as their mutual respect for each other. I can definitely see Pink to Habanero blowing up even more from now on. This is definitely going to be a shoujo to look out for in 2023 if it stays on the same track as it has been. Also, I still have my fingers crossed that we're gonna get that English license for it sometime soon, but as we've established, it is a Margaret title. Both Sentimental Kiss and Pink to Habanero have been the strongest manga sales-wise going into 2023. With so many outgoing titles, these mainstays are crucial for Margaret right now, as it is trying to replace those with new ones in the meantime. One of their newer titles that is kind of popping off right now is Douse Naku no Nara Koi ga ii, which is by Aki Kusaka, who I mentioned earlier. They started the series pretty much right after ending Hayakushi Tai Futari, and it's been pretty well received by fans. Currently, this title does only have 6 chapters, but in the recent issue of Margaret, they announced that it will be getting a magazine cover and full color page to celebrate its positive reception. To put that into perspective, Haiku only ever had 1 magazine cover that happened 1 year into its publishing. So yeah, Kusaka's new work is definitely doing better already. I was able to check out the first chapter through a free reading trial offered on Margaret's website, and this series definitely has that signature Kusaka charm. The story follows a high school girl named Hotaka who is starting at a new school since her dad has to move around for jobs all the time. On the day of her entrance ceremony, she runs into her neighbor named Minato, who is wearing the same uniform as her. She tries to greet him, but just before she can, Minato gets yelled at and water thrown on him by someone from inside his house. Things get even more awkward between the two when Hotaka tries to get on the elevator with him, but tripping and falling, scattering her things everywhere, and ending up upside down, essentially flashing him. Things go from awkward to downright bad when the elevator stops and the two get stuck together waiting for help to come. The art looks great as always from Kusaka, with some great visuals that get the story across for even someone like me who can't read Japanese. Hotaka seems like a character who just wants to enjoy school life and have friends, but her father's job constantly moving them around is just not making that feasible for her. There's a nice little visual metaphor in the art with her being stuck in the elevator that really gets across the point that she feels closed off from everyone. It seems like this series is going to have a good mix of emotional beats with comedy, which is present in most of Kusaka's works. Real quick, let's just rapid fire some titles that have not been on my radar as much from the magazine, but are currently publishing. 2 titles that only seem to be about a couple chapters in is You Can't Fall in Love in Nijin no Hara, and one that I just cannot figure out what the translation of the title is supposed to be. Neither of these interest me too much from the premise though. I looked at the first chapters for both and I just, One that does look fun and has been publishing for a little bit longer is Koi 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 by Shichimi, which has 3 volumes out. It's about a girl who loves love and a boy who hates love, and the two join a love research club at their school and hijinks ensue. Another that piqued my interest while looking through was a title called Secret Cutie, about a handsome girl who likes cute things. The art wasn't like amazing or anything, but I will say the premise sounds fun and I liked the character designs, especially for the guy because he kind of had like curly blue hair, and that's a little like different from what I usually see. The last series that I really want to spotlight though is a title called Youjouhan no Ibara-hime, with art by Mutsumi Yoshida and the story by Sato Zakuri. This is one that I was incredibly excited for when I first saw it announced because I love both of these mangaka. Yoshida's most recent work was Kanojo ga Kawaii Sugite Ubanai, which was such a fun premise and laugh out loud funny, but that ending was so rushed, it was very disappointing. On the other hand, Zakuri has been making works for Margaret for years now, with her most popular title most likely being My Runovich. Seeing these two pair up to make a manga together had me surprised and also just ready to see what they were cooking. The story seems to be a little bit of a Cinderella-ish tale about a poor girl named Shinra who has basically no family or friends to rely on and lives on her own. She doesn't believe that she'll ever have a normal high school life and basically has given up hope on happiness. That is until one day when one of the popular boys at school spots her in the courtyard eating her lunch off of the ground because she tripped and dropped it. He takes an interest, but Shinra believes that he's making fun of her and pushes him away whenever he tries to offer help and money. However, he doesn't give up as he tries to change her life for the better. As always, Yoshida's artwork is so cute and so pretty, and has even improved in between series. I always love the glassy, detailed eyes in their artwork, but in the first chapter alone, it was really the shading that stood out to make the series much more emotional. This is most likely due to Zakuri's storytelling as well, since she's always been much more into the heavier hitting drama series. I can already tell how full of angst this series is just from how many panels there were of Shinra laying on the ground in her empty apartment and staring out the window wistfully. She just like me. She just like me for real. While I can't say how well this series is doing just yet, considering it only has a couple chapters under its belt, it definitely has potential. It's consistently been the 4th series in the magazine lineup, so it's doing well enough to not have been pushed to the back of the magazine just yet. It'll be interesting to see how well it does when the first volume releases, and also interesting to see how long it's going to run. Most of Zakuri's titles have been over 10 volumes long, so I do hope this one will be a long-running series as well, especially because Margaret needs those right now. And with all that, this is where Margaret is going into 2023. I really do think that a lot of these new series have good potential, along with the fact that Hoshino will be coming back with a new series very soon. Out of the 3 new mangaka that I had talked about prior, only Chihiro Hiro hasn't announced a new series yet, but when they do, it's sure to be a hit. Other than that, the state that Margaret is currently in is fine. It's not like it's in the best place considering there's way too many new titles that are publishing concurrently, but it does have a couple mainstays that are keeping it afloat. And this is just all in terms of the manga series doing well. This isn't even about the magazine itself, which is an entirely different can of worms.
I'm gonna hold on. Quiet. I'm about to. Editor Colleen here. There's been an update since making this video. It's been announced that the spin-off magazine to Margaret, The Margaret, is going to cease publication in the next issue that comes out in the summer. This publication was mostly used for one-shots and short stories. There were a couple longer-running manga inside it as well. However, this manga magazine has the same amount of circulation as Margaret, so it could be cause for concern. However, it's most likely that this magazine ceased publication because of the web app Manga, which kind of takes the place of the one-shots and shorter stories, and a lot of shoujo series are on that app already. There's the update. You happy? Back to you now.
I think what Margaret needs right now is really just variety, if anything. There are only high school romance manga that are currently publishing in the magazine, and since most of them are only a couple chapters in, they're all competing with each other to stand out more. Yet because of that, they're getting muddled together, even if the characters or the premises aren't the same. The only thing that can really distinguish all these same setting romance series apart is the artwork, which is part of the reason why I believe that Kusaka, Hoshino, and Hiro are standouts right now. So other than having established series and not so many concurrent new titles running at the same time, I believe the biggest necessity that Margaret needs is genre variety. They've had several sports, sci-fi, and mystery series running in the magazine in the last couple of years, and while none of them did great, they at least added something new. This small variety of genre in the magazine would also help differentiate itself from Betsuma, which mostly sticks to slice-of-life romance. The state of Margaret is pretty much at rock bottom, but I believe with these new crop of mangaka and new series, there might be more interest coming to the magazine soon. It's basically been having to restart from the ground up in the last few years, and while it's not like it was doing amazing before that, losing all those mangaka at the same time definitely didn't help. The rebuild has been slow, but the manga that has been offered in the meantime has been good. This year will be pivotal for the magazine as we see how this new set of talented artists and authors work that signature Margaret magic. I don't know if I like that last line. Editor Colleen, can you like add in a better line for the end?
Do you think I'm some sort of wizard? You have to say the good line for me to put the good line into the video.
You have been sassing me this whole time now. Just do it. What do I even not pay you for?
You know what? That's it. I quit.
Hey, you can't quit. How are we gonna end this video? Hey! I guess I gotta end it myself. That's the end of the video. Bye! Okay, I need to turn it off. How do we turn this off? How do we turn you off? Oh, I'm gonna need a new camera.